All right, so we have MrGM's interview with Patrick Dawson and Maria Hamilton.
Hello there, and welcome to a developer interview for patch 10.1 Embers of Neltharion. I've just seen the presentation, and I'm joined by Maria Hamilton and Pat Dawson from Blizzard, and I've got a couple questions, and hopefully we can get some good answers and things like that, but it definitely looks very cool. First question, I guess, for both of you, how you doing?
Great, I'm caffeinating. This is early in the morning for me.
Yeah, I'm doing wonderful myself. A lot of really fun energy for World of Warcraft over the past few months, but be it our 10.05 update, our 10.07 update, which is just around the corner, and now this amazing...
The developers seem a lot more laid back and a lot more willing to engage with the community, which tells me that they may actually... The numbers might be looking good for World of Warcraft in terms of who's playing and who isn't. It would have, like, obviously there's going to be trouble in World of Warcraft regardless, right? There's going to be problems always, because mostly the only things that really get shared and the only things that really get traction would be the negative stuff. So if there's even a small group of people that's complaining about Mythic Plus, it's going to seem like there's a lot of people complaining about Mythic Plus. But overall, they seem a lot happier, which suggests to me that the internal numbers might actually be looking good for WoW Dragonflight.
Full-on new zone, new season that we get to look forward to coming up soon.
Yeah, I think it's been awesome. Like, I've been pretty heavily testing all the PTR stuff, like 10.05 and 10.07. 10.07 was such a massive patch for like a 0.7. I was really impressed with everything kind of going on there, especially like, you know, the amount of lore and things happening, like with the quest lines and then the vaults and everything like that. And obviously that leads straight into Embers of Neltharion and the Zaralek Cavern. Is that correct?
Yep, Zaralek Cavern.
Amazing. Okay, I guess kind of the first one, I saw that there was kind of an update to not only obviously the new zone, but we also have stuff going on in the Dragon Isles, the regular Dragon Isles, right? So right now, obviously, we have the elemental storms that are going on because of Razageth and things like that. What is becoming of those? Are they going away? Are they being upgraded? Will the rewards still be available, the achievements, etc.?
Yeah, you'll still have access to the achievements, the rewards, everything for that. You can still do that and use that as a catch-up mechanic if you're leveling a new character or you just want to participate in it. I know for myself, I'm a collector, so I'm going to want to make sure that I get in and finish all those things. And I haven't quite done that yet. I've been very busy with other activities in games. So yeah, I'm glad they're not going away. So you'll still have an opportunity to do those.
Excellent. I guess a question for Maria is you do like more like quest orientated stuff, right? Like story and things like that. With kind of the zone, will there be a lot of kind of like I guess flashback would be probably maybe the best word for it of Neltharion and more about that kind of like backstory of Neltharion while we're down there?
Because we're traveling to Zaralek Cavern, which is where Aberrus is located, the lab where Neltharion did some pretty heinous experiments, we are going to see what he was up to. We're gonna get a real good sense of what happened there, and also
that's good.
You know, this is where he was driven mad. This is where he made that flip, became effectively Deathwing. So
that is now confirmed. I mean, this is now the second interview we've heard where they basically say this is where he became Deathwing. So, that does throw the timeline a bit. It's not bad. It's not like it's an actual retcon. Not completely, at least. Because all it now suggests is that what we previously thought was Deathwing trying to contend with the Whispers and also contained with reality, was actually just Deathwing pretending not to be Deathwing. So he was still very much sort of trying to play both sides, even though he had already completely succumbed to the Whispers of the Old Gods.
There's a lot to learn lore-wise here, and as we explore around the cavern, we'll also see some of the some of what happened in the cavern because Neltharion was there. So Jarden Elders, for example, this was the home of the Jarden. He was helping himself to, them from.
Okay, so we're gonna learn about the Jordan. This was their home. And Deathwing effectively went in with these soldiers, bullied them out, and did some shit. Okay, I'm excited even more than I was just a little while ago for this patch.
Time to time as experimental options. He had dumped failed experiments in the cavern. So there's a lot to see here that has his hands all over it.
Okay, awesome. That's exciting. Is there any old god influence?
I wouldn't say directly that there's an old god influence, but I would say that certainly you're going to learn a lot more about what happened till Neltharion down here. And I don't want to spoil too much. No,
but there will be, right? Yeah, that is Sudge as fuck, right? Because there will be an old god, especially both of their faces. When he asked that, will there be an old god influence? And both of their faces just like waiting for the other person to take it, because they're they're just like I wouldn't say there's a direct influence of the old god, but I don't want to spoil it, there's gonna be an old god influence here. It's the old gods that ultimately corrupted him, so of course the old gods are going to be present in some way, shape, or form.
People to get there as they play. So essentially, I think you'll have a pretty good idea of what happened, and you'll have the opportunity to learn that with the Black Dragons, with Sibelian and Rathian. So
on the new old god thing, we already know that it's now effectively as confirmed as can be that there is a fifth old god in World of Warcraft. I mean, Deathwing or Neltharion being so incredibly close to the old gods, hearing their whispers, knowing who they are, when he annotated the journal page about the old gods, he did not correct the passage that explained that there are 5 old gods. That remained. His annotation spoke to something else. So I think at this point that is largely confirmed. There is 5. So there might be another old god that we have never known about or heard about that may have actually been pulling a lot of the strings in the back.
They will be learning it at the same time the player is.
That's awesome. So I assume we go down there with the Black Dragonflight with, is it Eberson as well? Is that...
Yes. Abyssian, Sibelian, Rathian, and also Emberthal is along. So that will give you sort of different opinions and context to what they're seeing as they travel through the cavern.
Okay, cool. I guess how do we get there? Is there like separate entrances? Is it through the Forbidden Reach?
There's actually multiple entrances from the Dragon Isles in there. You'll actually burrow through some tunnels that have been bored into the earth, and you'll actually just go right into the zone. You can get there through your dragon riding. You can fly right in, and you can dragon ride all around the new cavern itself too.
Okay, is it instanced, or is it actually in the outside?
No, it's actually, this is really cool. We actually developed all new technology to make this possible, because in the past you couldn't put a zone directly underneath another zone. You had to make like a special, either an instance or something like some sort of like cavern or something that was geometry itself. But instead we're using our zone technology. Our engineering team created what they're calling airlock technology, which is where you can seamlessly transfer in to this new area. Without even noticing it. It just feels natural and normal as you dragon ride.
Dude, do you have any idea what that technology will do for the future of World of Warcraft design? Because it basically now gives you retroactive layer design, where you can start playing with layers. So we first saw Blizzard really playing with verticality in Nazjatar. Nazjatar was the first time we saw Blizzard really going, right, how about different layers for a zone, so you're not just playing on this one giant layer, but rather there's under, there's above, there's all sorts of things going on here. And this opens that door now to say, okay, wait a second. We have this, zone that comes in a patch, but this zone is, say for example, located directly above another one of our zones. So let's say for example you had a flying zone, a magical zone which the enemy uses to basically assault from the air. And now you can literally just fly up to the zone, no loading taking place, and you have a brand new zone on top of another zone, or even underneath. It just allows so much more possibility. It's, in my opinion, really, really awesome to see Blizzard constantly bringing out this new technologies with how the game is. And I think this speaks directly to people complaining about the engine in World of Warcraft being so outdated. All of these things, when people say the engine of World of Warcraft is outdated, this is engine related. The fact that Blizzard can do this is your proof that Blizzard continuously updates the engine. Whatever problems you may have with World of Warcraft, those problems are not engine related. The engine is as new today as it was new 5 years ago, as it was new 10 years ago. It's new. They constantly update it. They constantly keep it, current. This is just, it's cool.
And through this cavern.
Okay.
It is super cool too. I gotta say, like you come up from up high, and you just go zooming down into that cavern, and it's got twists and stuff. It's pretty cool. Like
so cool.
It's really enjoyable.
I'm looking
I love
forward
that.
to it.
That's actually really cool. Is that similar to because I noticed in 1007 with the Scare Vaults, you kind of get that seamless transition where you go in there, but it's obviously in the same zone. I assume it's kind of similar to that, but yeah, that's so cool. Excellent. I did notice in the presentation there was mention of new dragon riding abilities. If we could get some possible information on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I think Maria, correct me if I'm wrong. There's one where you can like stop on a dime. I think there's one where you'll be able to just sort of like stop very quickly. I mean, as somebody who was trying to get all those banners at the top of the peaks in the initial launch, it was really difficult to like land right there.
So
but if you could
fucking
stop
hard.
your dragon pretty quickly.
That is one of the biggest frustrations with the Assassin's Creed flags that you collect throughout the game. Bro, like that shit is annoying. The amount of times I have spent flying around a fucking peak because there's only one place that you can land on, like one angle, but you have to approach it also not too fast, not so slow that you can't actually reach it. So you just keep going round and round and round trying to get it perfect. So yeah, it's almost like it's annoying.
There's also customizations that we want to add as we go through this. We'll be adding some as well for dragon riding, and there's a new drake that you can acquire in the cavern itself.
Yeah, I think one of the other ones also allows you to regain as you skim, as you stay very close to the ground, you're regaining faster as well. Something along those lines, but I don't know that it's 100% set exactly how it works yet. But there are some cool new adjustments, yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. You mentioned about customization. Is there like any additional customization for current like dragons as well? I saw like helms were kind of data mined a while ago for the dragon riding drakes, things like that.
I might have to get back to you. I don't know that.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I believe so, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to promise you something that we're not for sure.
No worries. I guess with the kind of Cloud Serpent type dragon riding drake, I assume all the colors and unlocks and things like that we got already in Dragonflight will be available for that as well. So say if we got like the bronze scales from the Valdrakken Accord, we would get that, I guess.
Yeah, the new drake we're introducing would be subject to the same rules and restrictions as the current.
Excellent, cool. It's I really like that drake. Will that be? I assume that's unlocked through the story of the cavern.
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome.
What does Patrick do? Hold up, I need to see. What does Patrick do? World of Warcraft production director Patrick Dawson and lead quest designer Maria Hamilton. You see, the problem here with the interview that they gave Mr. GM, and this is literally not meant as a flame. In my opinion, they gave Mr. GM two people that isn't really within the scope of the kind of things that Mr. GM care about. So if you've ever followed Mr. GM, you know he's very big on transmog stuff, cosmetic stuff, allied race stuff. That's the kind of stuff that Mr. GM really cares about. Story, which would be Maria Hamilton, right? Because she's the quest designer. I don't think I've ever seen Mr. GM make a video about the story of World of Warcraft. I'm not saying he doesn't care about it. He obviously personally cares about it. But I don't think he cares like deeply about what the story of World of Warcraft is, right? In terms of like making videos about it or whatever. Because a lot of the questions that you just heard Mr. GM ask, they don't really know how to answer because it's not in their... It's not what they do. There's nothing to do with what they do. So I do think they kind of missed the... Shall we say... They kind of missed the mark with what developers they gave to Mr. GM here. Just based on the last two questions, really. But yeah, it just seemed a little awkward. Obviously, it's all stuff just under Ian. However, the problem usually with that is when you have like... So, for example, this just happens to be something that I really care about, so I would be fine with it. But in a world where I didn't care about it, giving me the production director to interview, the production director oversees production. Not necessarily all of the ins and outs of that production, but in making sure the different departments are linked together, in making sure that the departments have the resources that they require in order to, you know, fulfill their duties for whatever that new expansion or patch is going to be. And the kind of questions that you would ask the production director would be in line with that, right? So what goes into making the Drakthir playable? Or what goes into adding dragon riding as a system? What departments would be involved in that? That is something that Patrick could obviously very easily answer, because that's literally what he does, right? Is making sure that different departments speak to each other and how they need things from each other and making sure that they have everything they need and so on and so forth. So you want to ask more sort of business-like decisions or behind-the-scenes questions there.
Cool. What else I've got? Oh yeah, of course. Renown. So we're getting a new Renown track with the mole people. I forget the name. What's the name of the?
Niffin.
Niffin. Excellent. Will that include a new level of will we get new levels of Renown as well, or is that still going to kind of be like 25 or 30?
You're asking how high the Renown track is?
Yeah, sorry,
for the Niffin specifically. I actually don't think they've finalized yet. We're still working on what unlocks at each Renown level, and we won't make it be 25 just because the others were 25.
Yeah.
We'll make it fit for the activities that we have to unlock. One of the cool activities that didn't get a lot of love, but I want to talk about because it's awesome, is what could be described as cave diving with a Niffin buddy. You make friends with this particular Niffin, and you know they use their nose to sniff out interesting places, and so he can take you basically to different caverns and things, additional caverns and things where you can find stuff. But it's based on his sense of smell and what he thinks
cool,
smells
actually.
interesting. And we're calling it sniffing seeking. So
That's actually cool.
That's
I
excellent.
think it's pretty funny.
I like that.
But the Niffin are really cool, yeah. And I think people should enjoy sort of.
This, Abaddon, is what archaeology should have been in the first place. And this is very close to what I said an archaeology rework should look like. So, for example, you have the Niffin, very heavily in smell, and they can take you around the world to places that no one else would know exist. And then you go on this epic adventure, right? So you go cave diving, and you have to work your way through this cave, and maybe you add stuff like puzzles and problem solving and, you know, just small puzzles that you have to go through in order to open a door and then get to the other side, and eventually there's a little bit of story to unlock, and maybe, you know, a couple of items, the you know, toys or whatever. That is what archaeology should be. It should seamlessly interact and plug into the rest of the world and unlock lore and story that would otherwise not be in the game, if that makes sense.
Meeting them, like I said, it's all sort of nose scent related. Their culture is very scent related. So, and they burrow places.
Excellent. That's really cool. I saw I did see something sneaking in there on the presentation. The word snail races was on there.
Yeah, well, what is that?
Like,
Let's hear it.
yeah, any info on that? Like, is that similar?
Pala Jiggy, how you doing, fam? Thank you so much for the Prime sub. Really appreciate that. Welcome to the most degenerate channel on Twitch. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind, sir. See me sniffing and digging? Oh, yeah. I'm going to be sniffing and digging all over the place.
To dragon riding races just with snails, or what are we kind of looking at with that system?
Well, it's that cultural Drogbar thing of loving their snails and loving their snail races and loving to bet on their snail races and so forth. And we have some content that allows you to get your own snail racer mount.
Amazing.
You have to train it, of course. It's quite slow at the start.
Bro, you get your own snail mount and then you train it and you make it better. Is this chocobo racing? Is this what we're finally seeing? Chocobo racing coming to World of Warcraft? Because if that is what's coming, that's where you'll find me, boys. Because that's what I did most of my time in Final Fantasy, is I chocobo raced. Because I fucking love chocobo racing. Thanks for the first time chat, Palajiki. Been watching your YouTube videos like a fiend the past little while. Thought I'd stop by the stream. Very happy to have you here, fam. Thank you for the support as well. Only thing we missed is the snail breeding. Would be awesome. Well, that could be added later on, Ben. No?
But yeah, it's Drogbar. That's all Drogbar content. That and lifting heavy things, which fits with them as well.
That's really cool. I saw, I guess one thing that kind of sprung to mind when I was kind of watching the presentation is, like, obviously, we've already been to Depot and back in Cataclysm. Is there any sort of, like, design kind of comparisons there with the way that the zone looks and feels, in a sense?
I don't think so. Really, you have these three distinct areas. The sort of natural caverny area, has their classic stalactites and stalagmites that are kind of pointy. But we also have this area that is quite crystalline. And so those ones are more like columns, greenish sort of columns. And then we have the sulfur pools area, which is all yellow and caustic and bubbly. And then the lava area, which has the classic lava shape. So I don't think it's very much like Deep Home in the sense that it feels it's vast.
Come on.
He's paused time. What a legend. Can't believe it. I didn't run the ads. The ads are the ads are automatic. Yeah, I didn't. It's not live. What? 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 What a crazy boy.
But of course it wasn't live. We thought it was.
I thought it lagged. Oh, sorry. I'm everywhere, boys. Why do people think it's live to begin with? I don't know. I'm not even wearing that t-shirt. How are you talking without your mouth moving? It's crazy, isn't it? Look, I'm here too.
What is happening? Mr.
What?
Jim paused the video for
Hey Dan, how you doing?
some reason. I don't
Great
know why.
interview.
Probably because
You
ads
seem like you're
started
under a lot of
playing
pressure.
or something.
Yeah, it seems like it's quite difficult for you because you just found out about these things and you're trying to figure out questions really quickly. Yeah, must be difficult.
I'm not entirely sure.
I knew it wasn't live with
No,
redundant
no.
questions, asking things already covered already. You'd never do that if you'd known them at the time of conducting it. I didn't know shit. Okay, are we back out of ads? Are we out of ads? Are we free? we free from the ad monsters?
See, this is where, if Mr. GM ever watches this, Mr. GM, what you do before you get into an interview like this is you hit run 3 minutes of ads, right? And then your channel goes on an hour-long cooldown period where no ads will be shown so that you don't get interrupted in the middle of this, right? Like, you don't get interrupted by stupid fucking ads and shit like that. But never mind.
Are we good? Yeah, we out of ad jail?
Yeah, this isn't
Okay.
live either, guys.
We good?
This is just a recording of me. I just happen to have
We're
guessed
back. All right.
what you guys are going to
Bye,
write in
guys.
chat.
Have fun.
That's how good I am.
I mean, it's a very, very big cavern, and the altitude of the floor as well as the ceiling is changing as you're moving
You can
through
suck
it.
my
So,
dick later.
dragon riding skill is super helpful here because you wanna zoom right up to the, as you're coming up, and then you want to dip down to avoid the stalactite, and it's kind of an interesting space. It's not quite as I don't know. It's not quite as a giant hollow in the earth as much as it is, a cave system. So.
Okay, yeah. As you mentioned in the presentation, like you said, dragon riding just feels really nice in there. So I was kind of looking forward to that, I guess. With I think when people kind of speculated the underground thing, we were like, well, how's dragon riding going to work? But as you mentioned, it seems like quite cool that you kind of whiz through the caverns and things like that. I got a
Yero, I have a very strict don't ask, don't tell policy on paid chatters. You guys are not allowed to discuss your salaries with each other. That's in the contract, bro. What are you doing? Hey, everyone knows I pay for all my viewers. Otherwise, I would have 0 viewers. What the fuck?
Mythic Plus question. I assume that would be for Pat. I noticed that was it Vortex Pinnacle is in the Mythic Plus rotation this time around. That's
Yes.
from Cataclysm. I think previously, I don't know if it was an official quote or anything like that. Mr. Pandaria was going to be like the kind of unofficial cutoff for those Mythic Plus dungeons, and obviously Vortex Pinnacle being from Cataclysm. Is that something that's kind of changed
Bastard.
behind the scenes?
Rob
Is,
the
you know, could we
Fucking
see
bastard.
possibly even like earlier dungeons potentially added in the future, or?
Yeah, I think the world is open to us in terms of what dungeons we want to have make their Mythic Plus debut. So Vortex Pinnacle was one that I think was a team favorite, one that we've wanted to do for a while now, and just kind of felt really open, airy, and fun. So we wanted to revisit that and see what it felt like to update a dungeon that had never been in the Mythic Plus rotation to become part of it. So yeah,
So they
this
are
certainly
now
opens the door
officially
for
open
other
to this.
opportunities in the future. But let's see how this one goes and see how the community likes it, and we'll consider options in the future.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was as
Wrath
soon
of
as
the
I saw
Lich
that, I was
King
like, oh,
dungeons,
amazing,
please.
my mind just went, oh man, we could get all these other crazy dungeons from Cataclysm and whatnot.
Good God,
so,
Pinnacle.
yeah, that's
Let's
awesome
go.
to see in there. What else have I got on there? This is just I seem to ask this every interview I do, but normally the answer is no. But race class combinations, obviously we monks were opened up in 1007, and then obviously with Dragonflight as well, we got some extras. Is there any kind of additional?
Golgoth, it seems they're open finally to adding, like he just said, Patrick, Mr. GM asked him, with the inclusion of Vortex Pinnacle, a dungeon that was very clearly outside of the scope of Mythic Plus contenders. Remember, Ian said before Dragonflight, when they announced that they're doing this for old dungeons for the Mythic Plus rotation, Ian said that they're going as far back as Mist of Pandaria, and that the dungeons prior to Mist of Pandaria was never really designed with Mythic Plus in mind. And so it wouldn't make sense to bring those dungeons back, so they're cutting it off at Mist of Pandaria. But now with the inclusion of Vortex Pinnacle, I mean, that was Cataclysm, right? So very clearly, unless of course my timelines are completely fucked, that's before Mist of Pandaria, right? And when Patrick was asked about this, he said, well, I think the world is pretty open to us in terms of which dungeons we would like to bring back. So effectively what they're saying here is we can bring back any dungeon now. So either they've worked out the tech to where these dungeons can be pretty easily updated to become Mythic Plus dungeons, or they're just willing. Like maybe it took a lot less work to get, all of the older dungeons up to date than what they thought it would in order to make them into Mythic Plus dungeons. And so they're just happy to now basically go with whichever new dungeons, which I think, all in all, very good thing.
Coming in 10.1, or is that something for the future?
I don't think we have anything planned for 10.1 at this point. But for the future, yeah, obviously we're open to it. We just, like you said, we just did it with monks. I think we did mage, rogue, and priest for all in 10.05.
Yeah, it's a willingness,
and
that's good.
The race class combinations are expanding as they make sense and as we can make sure that they're properly animated and look right. So we'll go through the process and try to open things up to just give more options and customizations to people over time.
Amazing. That's
Moradon plus 20.
Just gets me so. Every time there's a new race class combo, I just get so excited. So I'm really.
Can you imagine Moradon Mythic Plus?
What else have I got? Oh, character customization. So we just got new hair colors for the orcs and humans and the Worgans in 10.07. It might maybe be a bit too early to say, but is there anything potentially on the horizon for that?
Well, you also got in 10.07 as well. So that's we definitely.
Dude, you want to know my greatest request, or something that I would just love to see in World of Warcraft? Mythic Plus raids. So old raids brought back to the new era, but actually made spammable. So not just sort of like an event. You can sign up to Icecrown Citadel and go do Icecrown Citadel, and every single time you clear it, you can upgrade it and make it even harder and harder and harder and harder, so you can just go even higher. That would be phenomenal. That would be absolutely phenomenal. And what's the first raid that I would bring back? Take a guess, chat. Which raid would first come back? No. Ulduar, bro. Ulduar. Fucking Ulduar, man. If you're gonna bring anything back, it has to be Ulduar. No? It has to be Ulduar. Yeah, I would 100% bring back Ulduar first. That raid was phenomenal. It was such a good raid. And then, of course, right after that, Zereth Mortis. Rukon, are you still in Discord or just in chat now?
Humans for 10.07, but Maria, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say we did tie that to the heritage armor lines. We thought, oh, okay, we're doing heritage armor lines. Let's add some additions there as well. And I would expect, that more will be coming eventually, as we do more work on the different races. So.
Yeah, I guess kind of bouncing off heritage armors actually, and the quest lines and things. Obviously, right now. Cool, on the PTR, the heritage armor quest lines aren't testable, and I don't know if that was an intent in regards to encryption and kind of keeping that kind of stuff secret. Is that something that we kind of see more of in 10.1, potentially?
By the way, I'm not suggesting that this comes back as a form of gear. You can obviously get gear from this, but bring it back as just something fun. So over the weekend, you and your guild aren't raiding on a weekend, but it's Friday night, you feel in the mood to go do a raid, go do an old raid. Maybe this week you're in the mood for ICC, maybe next week you're in the mood for Firelands, maybe the week after that you're in the mood for some even older, Black Temple, or what's the other one, Anchorage. Bring back the old raids and just have them be scalable. Right, so you can do them at 0 if all you're looking for is just a really fun experience, and you're just looking to hang out with your friends in WoW. And then if you do complete a raid, so basically what I'll say here is the raids don't work with a Mythic Plus key. The key is specifically tied to that raid. So every time you do that raid on, say, +1, +2 opens up. So you can now do that. You can sign up to that raid for +2. And then +3, and then +4. And maybe you make it where +5 is the mythic equivalent of an actual raid right now. So it is scaled up to mythic equivalency for a current raid. And you have that for all of the raids that you bring back, but obviously you bring them back one by one, and they never disappear. Why? Because a lot of those raids, the bosses will have to get new abilities. The bosses, you're probably going to have to do some kind of room changes. Why? Because a lot of those bosses were designed for an era in World of Warcraft where players weren't as good at the game. Hellfist, by the way, thanks for the Prime sub, bro. Really appreciate that. Welcome to the most degenerate channel on Twitch. Very happy to have you here, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I really think that that would be such a cool addition to World of Warcraft. Just as a fun aside for people that enjoy raiding and, you know, don't always want to do the current raid at, you know, mythic level. Sometimes they just want to go and have some fun in older raids and experience the older raids with a bunch of friends. I think that could be super cool. Super, super cool. How would you solve raid lockout, though, with a Mythic Plus raid style? I think there's easy ways of doing it. You effectively make it personal, right? So you just make it a personal thing. Whoever is the group leader, whatever their raid lockout is, the group will fall into that one. So effectively, if you join a group where the guy's already killed 3 of them, those 3 are dead for you as well, even though, say, for example, in the one that you were in, you didn't kill those 3. So that's probably how I would do it. Just keep it simple.
Essentially, big story beats kind of being hidden away.
Yeah, there's no timer, Voicey. There's no timer. This is a very casually driven piece of content. And if you do want to go hardcore, you do the +5, because that's a mythic level experience. So the hardcore guilds can do +5, but it's casual. There's no timer. There's no, oh my god, you have to, like, go fast as fuck, boy. None of that shit. This is meant for people just to have something extra to do, but also a way, and this is really why I want this, a way for players who maybe never played those old expansions to see the story of the old expansions. Because let's be honest, a lot of those raids, a raid like ICC, for example, there is a shit ton of World of Warcraft history locked behind ICC. So if you could get a way for new players to actually experience those raids, and it's not just them going in there smashing everything for a bit of gear, I think that could be really, really awesome.
What we've been doing over the last, while in Dragonflight, also in 9.2.5, we did encrypt some things. We've been working on our encryption technology. We've been working out some of the kinks and finding some of the bugs. We still let things slip, as you know, and occasionally fail to encrypt things properly. But yeah, we do have encrypted content in the Return to Forbidden Reach, and also in Embers of Neltharion. Sometimes, usually that unencrypts on day one, but not always. We're testing tech that also lets us unencrypt when someone reaches it, or the first time someone unlocks the renown to the right point. So, for example, some of the renown unlocked chapters that happened in Dragonflight, that was some new tech that lets us set a timestamp, or as soon as someone gets to this point in the renown, now it can unlock. So we are working on that.
I like that.
I think it's a case where we want the community to experience something together, right? We want them to see it at the same time, and it gives us an opportunity.
I wish everything would be experienced
to have
at
that
the
moment
same time
of excitement as somebody finds something like that, and oh my gosh, isn't that amazing? So we have been working on it, but here and there, now and then to try different things. So yes, the heritage armor's definitely encrypted.
Excellent. No, that's good. I honestly, I'm a big advocate for it. I really like the fact that, we kind of all get to experience it together and doesn't get, kind of spoiled out there as such beforehand. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of my list. I'm looking at my list and I'm like, well, kind of asked that already. I guess with you know, first of all, I really like the fact that we're not kind of abandoning the Dragon Isles as such, like with this patch. So we are, there is still campaign quests going on there and new kind of assaults and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. I guess, Maria, could you tell us possibly a little bit more about what's happening with the campaign side of things with kind of the mainland Dragon Isles stuff, potentially? Not too spoilery, obviously.
So the campaign itself, that's marked as like a campaign chapter with the special shield-shaped quest bangs. That's all in Zarelek. Well, most of it is in Zarelek Cavern, but we also have this continuation of our story of the Blue Dragons and what happened there. So, as you know, Caligos called for the Blue Dragons to come home. The Oathstone was re-empowered, and they didn't. Not very many showed up, and now we're going to find out why. Now we're going to find out what happened there, and we're going to take a look.
We're gonna find out why. Suggesting that something may have happened to quite a few of the blue dragons. Now, something interesting about blue dragons, for those of you that did not know. Blue dragons, probably very much related to who their father is, Malygos, they're incredibly inquisitive. This is actually one of the reasons the Blue Dragonflight, quote-unquote, died, as it were. It's not that the Blue Dragons were all massacred. A lot of them did die, and Deathwing had a massive hand in the massacre of the Blue Dragons. But even after that massacre, it's not as if there weren't still a shit ton of Blue Dragons left. There were. The problem is that once Caligos became the aspect of the Blue Dragonflight, he had no interest in sort of continuing the Blue Dragonflight as an official sort of Dragonflight. He had no interest in that for a number of reasons. Number one, he viewed himself as too young to actually tell a lot of these much, much older Blue Dragons what they can and can't do. He didn't view himself really as an aspect. He felt inferior to the other aspects, because obviously these aspects came up together. They were proto-drakes together. They had this entire history together that he did not have. He did not share in any of that. So for Caligos, it was far more like just making sure that the Nexus works and making sure that all the secrets in the Nexus is there. But he allowed the Blue Dragons that wanted to sort of venture off on their own and go find themselves. He allowed them to do so. And as a result of this, the majority, if not all of the Blue Dragons that were left. They went off into the great beyond and went to go search for stuff, right? Now, of course, he's calling them back. Some showed up, and a lot of them didn't. And because of their inquisitive nature, the question that I would ask you is, what do you think those Blue Dragons would have found? Because they're very inquisitive, like Malygos were. So there is a good chance that they may have found Accolonn, and that is exactly where this next storyline will lead, is to Accolonn and the discoveries of Accolonn. Just saying.
Look at the state of the Blue Dragonflight and get a good solid look. We're also looking at the next step of what happens with tier. So for those of that have played that chapter, we know we've created a tier body, but it's not really doing anything just yet, and so we're gonna start working on that as well. So we wanted to continue some of these stories, and
Rob the Fool.
Intentionally
Very
sat down
true.
and designed out pacing throughout our different releases, so that we can tell these continuing stories and let people kind of stay engaged. And then our .7 patches give us an opportunity to lead into them. So Return to the Forbidden Reach is a great example of that, right? Where we're going to have a chance to kind of lead you right into what happens in Embers of Neltharion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I assume there was probably a pretty good reason why the 1007 storyline was encrypted. I assume if we were able to play it, we'd probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on in 10.1.
Yeah, the hope is that it serves as a prologue to the chapters in 10.1.
I love
It's
this
obviously
new
the first time
approach.
we've tried a prologue, so we're hopeful that this.
I love this new approach because it's effectively taking the story so much more seriously, which is what I'm here for, right? It's why I play WoW. It's allowing the story time to breathe. The story kicks off in 10.07, and then in 10.1, you get to see the culmination of things that have happened in 10.07. And then, of course, you have 10.17 that will lead into 10.2, and that's really the culmination of everything that happened in 10.17. This prologue and conclusion, I think, is really good. The only thing that I would actually sort of think that Blizzard could add even more, although you could get into a world now where it becomes too much content that has to be added. But how about a prologue, content, conclusion? So in other words, you have a 10.07 patch, then you have 10.1, then maybe you have 10.15, which is the conclusion of 10.1, and then you have 10.17, which is the prologue for 10.2. 10.2 is the content, and then of course you have 10.25, which is the conclusion of 10.2, and so on and so forth, and that provides you with a lot more time to allow for the story to breathe, for the story to occur, and then for the story to conclude. And then, of course, I think it would create a lot more flow within the expansion without the need for such obvious time gates. Because right now, the conclusion usually is built into the Renown system. So a lot of the stories will conclude as you go through Renown, whereas this would allow you to sort of build conclusions that will just naturally take a little bit more time. And so you'll only get those conclusions in the next patch.
That this is gonna do the job for us, but yeah, the idea is to set you up so that you know what's happening, you understand who's involved, and why we're going where we're going.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I guess 10.07 as well brought in the Bane quest line, and that was kind of a offshoot of everything that's going on, I guess, in the Dragon Isles. And I really enjoyed it. I did play through it on the PTR. Thoroughly enjoyed that quest. Could we expect anything like that in the future with different kind of like side adventures of various characters from Warcraft history and things like that?
As we move through this patch cadence, we are telling additional stories here and there where there's things that we think it's important we'd like to get out there, unfinished business, as it were, just a variety of things like that. So we've got a plan for what we're going to do for the future. Some of those things we're not positive exactly where they might fall, or exactly we can't promise they're going to come in at a particular time. It's part of why they're not on the roadmap, because we know we want to tell these stories. We just need to find the right places to tell them. So
there's even more story that isn't on the roadmap.
Longer rambling answer, yes-ish.
That's fine with me.
I think too, it's just one of the advantages of doing more and more frequent content updates to World of Warcraft. We've really adopted that philosophy in Dragonflight, and it gives us opportunities to do things like that. So not everything just has to be main storyline focused. There can be other delightful moments that we can provide that maybe are a little bit
it's fine. That's what makes World of Warcraft great.
So
yeah, I think it's fantastic.
There's so many
kind of like really.
Look, there's so many stories. We spoke about this yesterday when you guys asked me what game would I like to see made in World of Warcraft if it's not an MMO. And yeah, there's so many offshoot stories in World of Warcraft that don't really deserve main storyline contention. They can't really exist as main storylines. But they're good enough to where they still deserve a story. And that, I think, is at least for me, that's something where these new side stories really shine in World of Warcraft, because they highlight those offshoot stories that will never really be main storylines because there's not enough there, and really much of it is just world building. But to see it come to life and to see Blizzard actually taking those seriously, that's very, very heartening.
Release cadence and what we've had so far in Dragonflight. Like, we're not even in 10.1 and we've already had, 0.7, which is really just a massive patch. There's so much going on in the Return to Forbidden Reach, not just the story content, but obviously everything else with, the rares and the vaults and whatnot. I'm running out of questions now. I guess I'll start with Pat. Is there anything that you're personally excited for? Like, what's the most thing you're most excited for 10.1?
Yeah, so for me, I actually, the way I play World of Warcraft, I really like Mythic Plus. I like raiding. I like rated PvP. So whenever a new season comes out, I get really enthusiastic about all the cool new things I get to experience. And for this one, it's the shakeup of the dungeon rotation. I think is really interesting. It's the first time we've done that in the season 2. Typically, for the first, I think going back forever, we've always kept the same dungeon rotation, at least through the first 3 seasons. Shadowlands is the first time we really shook that up at all. So just getting different dungeons to learn and sink our teeth into, that's going to be really fun as a Mythic Plus player. I also think I also play a lot of alts. And one of the things that is important to me is like gearing them and how do I do that? And we've really looked at how we're dealing with like our upgrade system for this patch. So we've introduced a new system. So the current one is, you have Valor and you can go and you can upgrade based on your Mythic Plus rating, depending on how high you want to spend your currency at and how high you've achieved. So this one's going to be a little different. Rather than having like Storm Essences and Valor and multiple currencies, we're just going to have one currency, and that's going to be called Flight Stones. And then in order to upgrade your gear past a certain level, we have something called Shadowflame Crests that you earn through doing more challenging activities. So rather than just have it tied directly to Mythic Plus rating, you'll be able to earn these through more challenging activities in the world. So
interesting.
One currency and one unlock for it. So this is a completely cool system that I'm really interested to see how players engage with it.
Amazing. That sounds... Yeah, I'm glad I asked. That's really cool. Maria, what are you most excited for in 10.1?
Well, I already talked a little bit about sniff and seeking, but I'm looking forward to that. Because
Me too.
It's got a puzzle element to it, and I quite like puzzles, and that sort of how do I get to this place from that place style of
yeah, I'm a fan of that
thinking about an environment. I'm also excited about raiding. I do enjoy raiding, and I'm looking forward to the new bosses. With 9 new bosses, there's a lot of new stuff to learn. I'm always very careful not to play the raid before I get to actually play the raid for reals. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's always a cool surprise to find out, gosh, what's going on. But there's one boss in particular that you might have noticed in the art that is sort of the experimental, the trial of Deathwing's armor, right? His armor plating. And I can't wait to play that one. I've heard great things about that one, so I can't wait to play that one out and try it out. So that's big for me. I too am an altaholic, so I am also looking forward to getting more of my characters to max level and sort of
he does
playing
sick.
More in Zerlak.
Absolutely agree.
Level them up level up their gear. That's something I can't wait to do. So.
Yeah, I assume the kind of the outside world eye level and everything like that will go up as well, along with obviously the new season and everything like that. With the new invasions. I guess kind of last question, I suppose. Feral. I've written Feralak. That's what it's called, right? The Feralak invasions or storms or something like that, is it?
It's Farak.
Farak, sorry.
Farak,
I apologize.
He's the fire incarnate.
Oh, okay, yeah. So is that like so similar to Elemental Storms, is that system, or?
I'm calling it now.
No.
I'm calling it now, chat. Iridikron will not be part of this expansion. We'll see elements of him, but he will not be the final boss of this expansion. They're doing the fire one now, right? So we've already taken care of Razagath. We have Farak that we still have to kill, which is probably going to be if it's not, I don't think he's the end boss of the next raid, but he might be the end boss of the next raid. So if he's the end boss of this raid, then we're gonna get the Water Incarnate after right? In Tane 2, we'll get the Water Incarnate. And as we already know, there isn't a Tane 3. Which means Eridicron is going to start causing a lot of trouble for us over the course of this expansion, leading into the next expansion, where he will probably be either the boss of the first raid in the next expansion, with obviously new bosses being introduced, or maybe the final boss of the next expansion, with then new threats being introduced next expansion that will only conclude in the expansions after that. That is what I'm calling right now. I think they're going to give Eridicron at least 2 expansions to breathe and grow and become a proper sort of nightmare scenario.
It's a bit different. Essentially, Farak is going to unleash his hate in the form of fire in the Dragon Isles, and he will have some of his allies along with him assisting in these assaults. And during the course of these assaults, you'll find that they are looking for something. They're gathering something. They're looking for something. They have a goal, and there'll be bosses and things to fight as you play through it. And Farak himself will make an appearance.
Avalanche.
And
so the reason you have to be careful with that is if you listen to the interviews that they've done with Steve Denuser, they are aware that one of their biggest problems with Zuval was the lack of growth, was the lack of, let's call it, breathing room for that character. They're aware of that, right? I don't think they're going to make the same mistake, especially considering the fact that you have Steve Denuser in his interview, I want to say with Preach, but I might be wrong. It may actually have been a different interview. But Steve Denuser said, the new plan for World of Warcraft is multiple expansion stories. So instead of having every expansion deal with its own story, so in the past, what we would have is, the 4 Primal Incarnates are introduced in Dragonflight, and they're also killed in Dragonflight. It may have been the one with Noble, Benny. Yes, exactly. They're instead now going to go for, just because they're introduced in Dragonflight doesn't mean we kill them in Dragonflight. It just means they're a problem. And that problem will stay with us until we have finally solved it. But that doesn't mean that that problem needs to be solved in Dragonflight, because Dragonflight can come up with its own sets of problems that needs to be solved. It's entirely plausible that we don't even kill the fire boss until the end of this expansion. Right? That's also a possibility. So Farak, even though Farak is the one that opens the underground zone for us and the new raid, effectively, it's not Farak as the final boss. The final boss is one of the experiments of Deathwing. And that Farak is maybe the final boss of this expansion, and then the air one, I can't remember her name, might be the final boss or one of the bosses in the next expansion, and then Eridicron might actually be even the expansion after that. It really depends, but Blizzard is no longer tying themselves to one expansion needs to take care of all stories.
Flame, pretty much everything in the vicinity. So you should have some nostalgia there as well to experience.
I was just about to mention the Deathwing kind of comparisons there. That's excellent. But yeah, I think that's probably...
The fuck?
Hello there, and welcome to a developer interview for Patch.
Great things about that one, so I can't wait to play that one out and try it out. So that's big.
Very much.
All right, enjoy. Thank you.
So that is the end of it. Interviews will likely cut it off. Yeah. It was a good interview. As I said, a little awkward, but I think that's just because the developers that he was paired with isn't necessarily the developers that I think makes the content that MrGM would most likely be covering in his own videos and the things that he cares about most. Although I would say towards the end of the interview, it got a lot better. Especially because they started talking out of their, just by themselves, started telling things that they care about, which I think is really good. But yeah, overall, I think this is really, really good. By God Waste, we've already watched MrGM's video on what's coming in 10.1. So I don't think Preach is going to tell us anything extra.